What's going on, guys, gals, and non-binary pals? Welcome to the Nintendo Select Podcast, a weekly Nintendo Switch retrospective and nostalgia podcast where we talk about our favorite Switch memories. Hosted by me, Charlie Wackles.
And me, Tucker Hazel.
This week, we're looking back at the premier new IP of the Nintendo Switch generation, and one of Nintendo's magnum opuses, ARMS. We'll be breaking down the history of this game, what it meant to the Switch, our memories of it, and what exactly made it so special to us as a batch of Nintendo Switch connoisseurs. This week, we're joined by fellow YouTuber and ARMS enthusiast, A Talking Sock, who has brought up this game This week, we're joined by fellow YouTuber and ARMS enthusiast, A Talking Sock, who's brought up this game more on his channel than anyone else I can think of. Let's start with you, Sock. Tell me about your channel and your passion for ARMS.
But yes, hi, I am A Talking Sock. ARMS is a very special game to me. It feels like it was custom made to appeal to my particular tastes. From the designs of the world and characters, to the eclectic nature of the cast, to the arena fighter nature, to the percussive soundtrack, to the dynamic themes. It's a wonderful game. It's a fabulous game. I love it. I still play it to this day. I've got something like 500 hours logged in on it.
I am not that passionate.
And I'm not even good at it.
And honestly, I like that you have stuck with your passion for it, because when I found your channel, I was watching through a couple of your videos. I was playing, what was I playing? I think I was playing Stellar Blade at the time, and I was just watching your videos as I was playing Stellar Blade, and you kept mentioning ARMS, and then I texted Charlie, and I'm like, we gotta have this guy on to talk about ARMS, because no one, to this day, you still mention ARMS, in almost every other video you make, and that, I think, shows obviously clear passion for it. No one's paying you to do that. There's no secret ARMS cabal behind. There might be, but I like that it's something that you've made into a part of your personality.
Well, yeah, it's just one of those things where it's a game that I really like. It's very exemplary of what I appreciate about Nintendo, especially in the current gaming landscape, where ARMS is the sort of thing that it wouldn't be the same if Nintendo didn't make it. And it's not because it relies on the Joy-Cons, because it doesn't. I've logged 500 hours into ARMS, and it's always been with a Pro Controller or the, grip controls. Because the motion controls are fine, they work, they're cool, and the HD Rumble is cool as well. But it's the mechanics, the actual mechanics that I like, in general. I like arena fighters in general as a niche subgenre of game. Sure. Games like Custom Robo or War of the Monsters don't really you don't see a lot of stuff like that this day and age. Giga Bash was another good one that came out from an indie studio a couple years back. It was a kaiju arena fighting game, and it was really good too. But ARMS, nothing else plays like ARMS. It's very unique.
Yeah.
And everything about it coalesces to be this really great experience for me in particular. But what about you guys? What are your feelings?
Man, I can't say enough good things about this game. I have been and was from day one, even when it was first revealed, a proponent of ARMS. That reveal trailer back during the Switch reveal blowout thing in January 2017 was just that whole thing for me. I know people don't love that presentation, in hindsight, but it blew my mind. I was so fresh into gaming at the time that I was very much just oh, this is going to be peak. This is going to be amazing, right? And I looked forward to this game more than probably any other Switch game in the launch year. Honestly,
wow, that's impressive.
as much as I love Breath of the Wild, I guess Breath of the Wild also, but aside from Breath of the Wild, very much ARMS was the thing. I was so stoked on it. I loved it so much, and I was probably one of the only people I knew who was as into it as I was.
Oh, absolutely. I think we can all share that sentiment.
Yeah, 100%. But what about you, Tucker? What was your kind of especially what was your assessment of it before you played it for the first time?
To be honest, I think I was excited for it as a part of the Switch lineup. I think alongside Mario Kart Deluxe and Splatoon 2, the other games that came out the summer of 2017 for this Switch, I just liked that things were coming out consistently, and ARMS was interesting because it was something entirely new. It is really the only new, major new IP of the Switch generation. You can say, I guess Ring Fit Adventure probably also the other one, but
Well, that was like
Yeah,
2019.
yeah. But
Oh, you're talking about the whole
yeah,
generation,
the whole
not just the
Switch
launch
generation. Yeah, yeah. Because we talk about like each generation of Nintendo bringing us something new in terms of a world and characters, and usually a new genre. I mean, it's the ones that stick around the most are when Nintendo is trying their hands at a new genre. Pikmin on the GameCube, Animal Crossing, Wii Sports, Splatoon for Wii U, and then ARMS is that for Switch. And I was excited for it, as I was saying, because it was a part of this bigger lineup. I don't remember specifically being excited for this new motion controlled fighting game, because really that's what it was known as before it came out, and it's still known as to this day largely.
Yeah.
But because I'm not really a fighting game guy, and Charlie, this is why and you too, Sock, as well, why I'm interested to get your thoughts as people that are into fighting games in general, and certainly were before this game released, and how this shifts that genre on its head is what I think makes it so interesting. But also, for me, once I got my hands on it, it was because it was a twist on the fighting game genre and not a traditional fighting game that made me really enjoy it. I felt like I could be good at it because it wasn't super technical like other fighting games. I could be good at it because no one else had ever played a fighting game like this before. So it's not like you can bring your knowledge of other fighting games in to like do combos and be better at, parry timing or whatever. ARMS is its own thing, and it felt very inviting to me as a fighting game outsider that I could get into this totally new world, totally new style of gameplay, and just immerse myself in it. And I remember, I'll actually find it while one of you guys is talking. I wrote a review of ARMS that I'm gonna skim through while we're talking, so I can read a little bit in 2017.
Oh my god!
Because I was so passionate about it. But yeah, talk about that. Sock, will go with you. Being a fighting game person and how ARMS shifts out on its head. What does that make you feel?
Yeah, well, I am a fighting game fan, but I'm not a competitive player per se. I am the number 1 ranked Cyberbots player in the Switch version of the Capcom Fighting Games collection, but that's just because nobody's playing it. But yeah, what I love about ARMS, it's like you said, it is such a new game that it is inviting. But the thing about ARMS as well is that it is competitively viable. But the problem, I think, with its staying power is that the FGC, the fighting game community, wasn't willing to learn it on its own terms.
Yeah, definitely.
Like they discovered like they weren't combating strategies when they became popular, or particular ARMS combinations they felt were just too much. There were particular characters they tried to latch onto to say they have the most optimal stats, the least punishable stuff, the most but there's always a combination. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of possible combinations with all the different arms you can put on your left and right fighters' hands. So it's one of those things where it is just sort of like competitively it's really interesting to watch. It's almost like watching, it's like chess at 8 times speed. Sure. Every person's got to figure out, they have to read their opponent and respond almost instantly. So it's like rock, paper, scissors, but not as simultaneously. Very interesting. It's I won't, I'll try not to hog up too much of the talking time here. But
we have you on this channel
game, a lot of people think it was
because you like to talk about this game.
Oh yeah, well thank you. Well, thank you. But yeah, Kosuke Ibuki, who is the producer at Nintendo EPD9, the subdivision of Nintendo who made the game. He was talking about in the planning stages of this game, they were coming up with a project, and an idea that they hit upon was, can we make a 3D fighting game feel like a 2D fighting game?
Yeah.
And the system, they tried a lot of like systems to get that to work, and they found in the end that making the characters' actual punches extend out from them to reach their opponent no matter what place in the arena they're at was like the solution. And yeah, I'm glad they did, because a lot of arena fighters, their solution to that problem is to get items, stage hazards. Like if you look at Power Stone, or you look at War of the Monsters, even Custom Robo, it's all projectile based. It's all about throwing things, shooting things. But ARMS, it does feel a lot more visceral because they are still your punches. They are still attacks coming from your character's body. So yeah, like in terms of like viability in the party setting and the competitive setting, it's really, I don't know if it's the best of both worlds, but I love what it's doing. You know,
Well, clearly it's
Absolutely.
not the actual best of both worlds because it never caught on as either a competitive fighting game or a party game. And so it straddles this awkward line where it isn't a game that
Yeah.
people are just pulling out consistently over the years to play with their friends. I mean, you might. I wish I had friends that cared enough to play some Arms with me every once in a while. But it also, as you were saying, definitely did not catch on
Me too.
in the competitive area.
Yeah, I think Arms as a competitive game is very fascinating because I don't play like traditional fighting games super competitively. Like I enjoy them and I love watching them, but I'm not good, and frankly I don't have the bandwidth to spend hours in a lab when I
Yeah.
have other stuff I need to do for work when I'm playing games. But like the the back and forth of Arms is so strange because you look at the pace of most other fighting games, and like I've played Smash competitively for almost 10 years now, but like the pace of most other traditional fighting games is not the same as Arms,
Hmm.
I would say. And so I think when the
Yeah.
FGC is like looking for something to do or looking for like a way to latch onto this, it's just a different speed. And I think like in a lot of ways, it is a different flow from a competitive standpoint in compare as opposed to like a Smash or a Tekken or a Street Fighter or something like that. Where like I think if you looked at it as a non-traditional fighting game and you look at it as its own kind of thing as an arena fighter or even beyond, kind of outside the floating beyond the ether, floating in the ether of genres, you know, you have something that I think has a lot more competitive life than it was given credence to by a lot of FGC folks.
Yeah, I want
Yeah.
to talk about the way that Nintendo shared the info on this game before launch, because I think what was so compelling to me about it before the game came out is that they really put their all into making sure they were marketing this game and sharing information about it, and it meant that there wasn't really much to be surprised about when you actually got your hands on the game. It wasn't there like I don't think there were any unlockable characters at launch that weren't talked about pre-release. I mean,
Well, there were no unlockable characters
oh, well,
at
that's a good
all.
point. Yeah. But there wasn't any surprises in
Yeah.
terms of unlocking characters or stages that usually a fighting game has one or two. Not so much anymore, but
Yeah.
at least used to, especially from Nintendo. But I really appreciated that they went all in on this game because it is kind of hard to explain, especially because people are so
Right.
used to fighting games being either Smash Bros, Street Fighter, Mortal Kombat, or Tekken. Like those are really the three areas that fighting games exist in culturally. So they reveal this game with a live action cinematic thing with some people transforming and having their arms punching. It's like, what the heck is this? And then they have a more traditional trailer quickly followed after that, where you see all the characters and you see all the stages and you get a sense of the fact that this is a motion control game. And at that time, they didn't mention that it could be button controls and you do this to guard and you do this to grab. And then I think, again, proving that they really want to make sure that people understood this, they went straight into a demo with two people on stage playing a match against each other and sort of breaking down with an announcer what was going on. And Springman does this, Ribbon Girl does this, and this is when you want to dodge. And look, they're selecting the arms at the start of the match. And then that carries across the course of the next couple months with having some trailers in basically every direct that happens between reveal and release, and having its own direct. Arms had its own direct on. Let me find
Hell yeah,
the
it
date
did.
here. The
Yeah.
Arms direct on May 17th, 2017, and it featured a little bit of Splatoon at the end, but this was a 22-minute presentation just about Arms and about what the breadth of the game is and what the different modes are, because I don't want to talk about the different side modes this game has, and that rollout of constantly talking about the game and making sure that everyone knew what this was, because it was something so new, combined with the personality that they gave the game. One thing that was so strong about Splatoon was the fact that they had the Squid Research Lab and they were announcing these things in terms of new drops of clothes, and they did a similar thing for Arms, which was they had this character Biff announcing everything, and this narrator talking about the world of Arms as a serious thing and ingrained in the world and the culture and the lore of Arms, which is another element that I want to talk about that drew me in. But I loved that pre-release cadence. I thought it was really, really fantastic.
Yeah, I think it shows a lot of lessons learned from the Wii U era, Whether you look at Super Smash Bros. For Wii U and 3DS or Splatoon, the rollout of information, the ways in which, and Mario Kart 8 as well, the original release of Mario Kart 8 had so much information behind it because they knew, the fun in a lot of these multiplayer games isn't necessarily just the surprise of like getting to a new level that you haven't seen. It's more about the gameplay. It's more about like the systems and the things that you can do in this game and the things that the game enables you to do. And I think this ARMS presentation was maybe the best version of that kind of blowout that any Nintendo multiplayer game had seen as of yet, where it was very focused and it was very good because it did a great job of explaining so many different things in a very condensed amount of time. And like, I don't know, I think that points to a lot of the like genius of the Switch era messaging for Nintendo, and ARMS was kind of like the first guinea pig of that before we got the Splatoon 2 blowout and the Smash Ultimate blowout and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you know, something too about ARMS in the pre-release stage, and even the post-release stage, getting updates, is some people lump ARMS in with the quote-unquote finish it later approach Nintendo's adopted to a lot of games, where they feel like the content at launch is insubstantial because they're just going to, you know, update it later so they don't have to worry about it. I feel as though ARMS' content on day one was perfectly sufficient.
Mm-hmm.
It's I think it was a $60 experience, but the updates definitely helped make it special. Like you were saying, Tucker, in that first direct, they opened it with this mysterious baritone voice and this like, you know, otherworldly incantation as they go to like murals and artifacts of different eras in time depicting you know, spiral characters, arms, animals, plants, you know, even a thing that like reflects a Renaissance painting, not a Renaissance painting, sorry, a Celtic painting of Jesus and the disciples, but it's like a guy with a fist on his head and a mask on. And that's the thing about ARMS that really keeps me loving it and makes me really, really want to see a sequel. Is the world building. Like, ARMS, I think, is a masterclass. Splatoon obviously is too. Like Splatoon, I don't want to say Splatoon walked so ARMS could run, but the intrigue about the ARMS world is I love it. Because, like you said, Biff was sort of the in-universe guide to everything ARMS. I kind of didn't like him when we first saw him because you know at that point we had the first couple trailers and the E3 demo that had, at that point we saw 5 characters, right? Springman, Ribbon Girl, not Max Press, Master Mummy, Ninjara, and Mechanica. And I was looking at them and I was like, oh, this is great. These characters are like, they're all based upon different items that can swirl around like a recoiling spring. And all the characters follow in line with that and their designs. You know, we can go into that definitely a lot more. There's a whole like video. There are a lot of whole videos I want to make about particular aspects of ARMS. But
That's awesome.
But yeah, Biff in particular I felt like was a clash. Like I thought, is he supposed to be a cartoon character in universe?
No, he's a guy.
Because he doesn't look right. But he is. He's just a whole guy. But in the Nintendo Direct, I guess you can read it as they're dubbing him. Like because in the game, he speaks a different language.
Yeah.
And he's got like, you know, a high-pitched voice like, money.
Yeah.
You know, he doesn't sound
really
like
Animal
the
Crossing,
announcer in the Direct.
Banjo-Kazooie, like Star Fox kind of thing. And Biff is weird, and the world of ARMS is weird, and you're right that it is how mysterious this world is. That is both, I think, of the one game that we have, ARMS. What is its biggest strength and also one of its biggest weaknesses in my mind is that because this game was established to be the establishing part of a world, and we get these weird teases of a lore and brief backstories of these characters, it's so compelling. And you're like, well, okay, so if this person got their arms this way and that person got the ability this way, like, what does that mean? And they put some effort through, especially the unlockable pictures that you get from
The gallery artwork.
exactly the gallery
Yeah.
that you get through all sorts of different stuff.
The Arms Labs research.
You get little tidbits at the bottom of each of those talking about this is what the culture of this world is like, and this is why this person likes this person or doesn't like this person, and the history between Springman and Max Brass, and then you introduce Robotron and Dr. Coil, and like there is this really interesting lore and history there, but unfortunately, we never got to see any more of it. Like we don't know what the answers to any of this are, and that's compelling in its own way. But it's also much in the way that I find the world of Overwatch so fascinating. I love those characters, but there's never any movement to that story because it's just it. I mean, there might be, but it kind of just stopped. Arms is a similar way of like. I wanted to see, obviously I want to see a sequel to this. I especially want, and we can talk about this more, but I wanted that graphic novel series because that was going to answer the questions and give us a little bit sense of progression and narrative that this game and world feels primed for. The stages are unique, the characters are memorable, the lore of this world is so distinct, but there's not a narrative to Arms. There are the pieces of ones, and I like that, but I can't wait to see.
Well, there's a narrative.
Yeah. There's no conclusion.
It's just that, and I hate to interrupt you. There's what it doesn't have. What it doesn't have is a traditional. It isn't. It isn't typical. Yeah. It doesn't come packaged in the way that casual onlookers, are used to. But in a sense, I don't altogether understand. I mean, I understand why people want a story mode with these characters. But I don't understand why that in their mind equals Arms has no story.
Sure. Yeah.
Because it definitely, very intentionally, obviously does. And the way the updates were handled, I love. Because like all that research stuff, the gallery wasn't a thing until I think it was either the Springtron update or the Dr. Coil update.
One of those had the gallery, one of those had the badges. I can't remember which order they came in.
Yeah, badges was 3. Yeah. And I think that that was either Misango or Springtron, but yeah, and all that was great, of course, as well. It would have, something like badges would have helped to have had at launch, but they weren't necessary. But they are fun. But yeah, the thing about the narrative is that it's non-linear, it's passive. Yeah. It's a little bit like somebody who plays Metroid Prime without scanning anything and says, this doesn't have any reason to be.
Yeah.
This doesn't make any sense. This is just nonsense.
It's very like
I feel like that's part of the experience.
Or like Dark Souls. I mean,
yeah, I was literally
Souls
about to say
games.
it's very from Softy Miyazaki.
Yeah, Dark Souls. Yeah.
I think that like the passive story can be cool and useful, and I do like what we've seen in the first game, but I think that is something that I would like to see, whereas it is a more proper implementation of a traditional story mode, because I think that's a great way to reward and like tie into progression, because you do have all this stuff that you're unlocking constantly in Arms when you do any of the mini games and things like that you use to unlock stuff. But the fact of the matter is, the progression and the story and the world are all in their own ways fun and interesting and cool, but it doesn't do a great job of like tying them together.
Yeah.
And I think like looking forward to like what we could potentially see from an Arms 2, which is something I would like to talk about later on. I think a better focus on making sure everything coalesces into a more not necessarily complete, because I think we're all on the same page that Arms at launch was complete, but I think a more well-rounded, more fully realized package, I think would be really great to see.
Yeah,
I
can get behind that. It's well, and that's the thing too. Like the Grand Prix mode is basically your typical fighting game arcade mode, right, where the game encourages you to beat it with every character. And at the end, you get a little snapshot of a character, like a little piece of artwork that's sort of an epilogue. Yeah. Where are they now? And they're all adorable, and I love them.
And it's very much like Street Fighter.
But I think well, exactly. I was about to make that comparison. I feel like Biff almost gimps that aspect of the game, because the arcade modes open with him with just a panoramic shot of their home stage and his little head in the corner describing them. rather than the player seeing where they started.
Oh,
Like
sure.
if Nintendo included a couple illustrations of the characters about to enter the tournament, that might have gone a long way in making people feel a lot more strongly about ARMS story-wise.
Absolutely.
Because story-wise, I think the Dr. Coyle update may be the single like my single favorite gaming experience
Holy
ever.
crap!
The way that it tied so
Wow,
many
hell yeah.
things together, and yeah, no,
Well,
I'm
go
not
into
even
that, go into
kidding.
that.
Tell us a little bit about
Like
that.
I still. Well, yeah. So the thing about Dr. Coyle, I guess, spoilers for ARMS. Like anyone's gonna look it up, but she is the leader of ARMS Labs, which even from the earliest, that first direct, are an entity in the ARMS world that we don't know. We know that they made the arms, the armaments, you know, the boxing gloves, and we know that they sponsor the tournament.
And they made Helix.
And so there's this. It does that thing Splatoon does, and they made Helix. Well, that's the thing. I'm getting to that. Dr. Coyle made Helix. Dr. Coyle made Springtron. Dr. Coyle inadvertently made Master Mummy. And Dr. Coyle, this isn't confirmed, but there is heavy suspicion to believe that she made Springman, so to speak. If you look at that final picture of her and Max Brass when they were young.
Yeah.
Like, you know, it is a photograph of them as teenagers. She's working on some science. He's bringing her a plate of cookies. The photograph is torn and there's a tear on it. Springman has all the same abilities as Max Brass, but except without the whole inflating his muscles thing. And Dr. Coyle made a robot duplicate of Springman.
Yeah.
You know, in her own words, to surpass him. But, like, you know, it's just
No, yeah.
getting into fanfic territory,
Yeah, he
but
could be their son.
it feels very in character. Yeah, it feels very much like she is a scorned mother who is, like, looking for ways to... But that's the thing, right? She's not maternal. She's evil.
Yeah.
So she is thinking, like, you know, we made a son. I had a son with Max Brass. He should be the best fighter ever. But now I don't like Max Brass. Now I have to prove to myself that I can make something without Max Brass. You know? It's... I know. And that's the thing. I kind of hope Nintendo never outright confirms that in the same way that I hope they never outright confirm, like, you know, stuff to do with the Pikmin. Like, you know, the mystery as to why people keep crash landing on Earth. It's like, we have our theories. It seems pretty succinct that it'd be Umibozu. In the wake of Pikmin 4, retconning a lot of stuff, there have been people, you know, spouting out new theories that maybe it's the onions themselves that causes gravitational pull or whatever. But the point is, Nintendo definitely knows the answer.
Yeah.
There is like a Bible somewhere in Nintendo headquarters that explains why it happens, and that's what they work with. But I don't want them to tell us, you know? And that's kind of why I don't want like an outright big overarching ARMS story mode.
Sure.
Because I love the passive world building.
Sure.
It's so gratifying to just sort of like be in the world and not have it explained to you. Just sort of exist in it like you too exist in this world, you know?
No, definitely. Yeah. And I think another part of why the world building works so well is that it feels fully realized in its art direction, in its presentation, in the music, in the menus, in the theming. Everything about this game feels focused, laser focused on. It's certainly not on story. It's not laser focused on that story. It's laser focused on this is the world of ARMS. And I want to talk a little bit about why I think this game is among one of Nintendo. We've been talking about this game, like why we love it, but like why I think this game goes underappreciated in so many of its aspects. Is because I do think a lot of people criticize it for having less content than other fighting games released at a similar time. I want to talk about why I don't think that's fair. But this is a AAA production level game. There is a fully orchestrated and choral soundtrack. There are the
Probably
graphics,
the best soundtrack
like
of the Nintendo Switch era. Of,
it's
like,
certainly up there in
original
my
songs.
opinion.
Yeah.
Like, I mean,
yeah.
not to derail things, but like, I mean, Mario Kart 8 and Smash Ultimate are contenders, but those are not original songs for the most part.
Yeah.
And ARMS has like maybe the best title theme in any Nintendo game aside from Super Metroid.
Yeah.
So
Well, that's the thing too. If you've got if you're like musically literate, like if you understand like the composition of things, Dr. Coyle's theme and Headlock's theme and the Sky Arena theme, Like the Dr. Coyle with Headlock boss fight is so intense. I love it. It's yeah, the music goes very very
The
hard.
music's fantastic, and I guess we can just go point by point. Music is a big part of. It's a synergy between all of these, but you can go to each individual element and be like, they put a lot of effort into this soundtrack. Like this isn't
Right.
some half-assed MIDI, just like, oh, we're just putting
No.
things in the background. This is, and my favorite song in the entire soundtrack is the credits theme. When you beat any of the given arcade modes, you get
Yeah.
the credits theme that has this like powerful soaring version of the ARMS theme and like this trombone solo halfway through. And I get chills listening to that. And it's just because it feels celebratory and it feels quality.
It's also very relaxed. There's like the scatting. Yeah,
exactly. And
Yeah.
again, the synergy of the music with the visuals, which are again really one of the undersung elements of this game, the visual fidelity of this game, the lighting engine, and the use of color, the texture work on things that are made of rubber
Yeah.
or made of plastic. There is a quality sheen to this that I think people don't really give as much credit as it deserves. And when you're looking at this game and it still holds up just today alongside some of the other great visual games on Switch, and you're hearing this great music, like this is a full-on production. Like you can make, I think, somewhat rightful criticisms of the scope of this game being relatively limited, but in terms of the effort that was put into delivering quality visuals and quality soundtrack, it's all there.
And talking about like kind of the ways.
Well, and that's something. Oh, yeah, go ahead.
No, please. Okay. Well, talking.
Oh no. I'm curious what you were going to say.
I was going to say, talking about kind of like how the music and the visuals come together really well. I think the music is one of the most effective ways at making this world feel so alive and as immersive as it is, because most of these fights and most of the gameplay itself is taking place on a stage, right?
Sure.
It is very much like you have like the fight songs for the World Cup or for the Olympics or for the Super Bowl or whatever. And it very much feels like this kind of celebration of a sport. It feels like, okay, this is the pinnacle of a sport that is beloved worldwide. These are superstars, right? Springman is like a Lionel Messi or whatever, you know? And having this music kind of play into that like very, very, very similar vibe where it is a party and it is a celebration and it feels sonically very global in a lot of ways, very diverse with both the music and the characters and the locations, which I think is also something worth mentioning, especially as a Nintendo game. That I don't know. I think it does a great job of setting this world up in a very subtle way.
Yeah. Talk about the art direction.
I'm actually really glad you said that, Charlie. I was gonna say this actually ties into the art direction as well as the character designs and the influence. What you said about the music really tying everything about the game together is so true, because and there's a great video on YouTube about this. Scruffy, if anybody follows him, he made a great video about the music of ARMS, and that's the thing about ARMS too, is that world building wise, again, I don't want too much of it explained, because it's like there's a lot of cultural pull, like you said, globally. Lola Pop is Italian. You know, Misongo is a fictional nation, but he's got a lot of indigenous North American
it's like Aztec Mayan kind of
influence. Yeah, Aztec Mayan. And stuff
Lola
like that.
Pop, I think is
like they all.
Twintel, I think is French.
Lola Pop is Italian. Yeah, Twintel is French. Ribbon Girl is Japanese. Min Min is Chinese. They've all got Springman's American. They all have these great. Dr. Coyle is British. They all. It's very well, and you can also argue Bite and Bark. He's got like a Constable, a Bobby thing going
definitely.
on.
Yeah.
But yeah, Helix is Floridian, obviously. but yeah, that also the music emphasizes the world building and the global pull. That's the thing about the Grand Prix as well. You can see a map of the ARMS universe or the ARMS planet globe, and it's very similar to Earth, but not exactly the same. So you don't have to, linger on the implications of like cultural appropriation because it's fictional, but at the same time it's very respectful and really like it really like you said, Charlie, it sort of really special for a Nintendo game to feature that much global diversity.
Yeah.
And that sort of ties into the character designs as well.
Yeah.
There are a great couple of interviews with the team about that I love. The thing about ARM's character designs is that they are A, looking at an object that can coil and recoil like a spring. They are B, looking at something you'd associate with that thing, and then C, subverting the stereotype about said thing. But yeah, you look at Master Mummy, for example. First, they look at the object, that's bandages. They think, what do we associate with bandages? They landed on medical tape, like a mummy, but also, sports tape, like a boxer.
Oh, sure.
So they said, okay, yeah. So they're like, mummies are typically seen as like slow and decrepit and skinny, so we're gonna make our mummy stacked. And because he's wearing sports tape, it's like he's a boxer, that makes sense. But he also has the ability to heal himself because he's wearing bandages. It's like something like that. Or even Twintel. They said we want a character to fight with their hair. And when they were justifying what that character would be, they said, well, if they've got regular arms, what are they doing with them? Let's say posing with them. So she's a model. She's like a model actress. So then they said, okay, if she's a model actress, they sort of combined it all and made her like a superstar, label person who's got her own fashion line and perfumes and movies. They made her a superstar. It's stuff like that. You could look at every single ARMS character and see, the initial object inspiration, why it makes sense they'd be designed around that object, and how they made that character special so that it's not just the obvious route. That's a really special thing about the way ARMS characters are designed, I feel.
Yeah.
I want them to do a Curly Fry ARMS.
Ooh,
guy.
yeah. That'd be fun. Yeah, Charlie.
Yeah. Here's an exercise. Okay, curly fry.
Nice.
So what do we associate with curly fries?
Flavor.
Flavor.
That's good. Different dust, different flavors
There
have
we
different
go.
effects.
There we go. See, now we're cooking. Yeah. So then you lead into like the different.
Literally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The exactly. Yeah. You get a chef. He's got like spiralized potatoes for arms. The different like different gloves themselves change the the arms will enhance the effects of those gloves. You get a little elemental boost on
The apron.
Yeah.
The apron gives you like immunity to effects. Like you can shield the effects of like electricity or freezing.
Yeah.
See?
And like what's the stereotype of like a chef? You're either thinking of like a French wee guy, or you're thinking of like a teenage fast food guy. Let's make him old. Let's make it a middle-aged female McDonald's manager.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There we go.
That's different.
Yeah.
That's new.
Yeah, and
Let's do
actually,
it.
I
There you
definitely
go.
think
New ARMS character.
I definitely think that what you guys were referencing
Pitch
in
it.
terms of the cast of ARMS being as globally diverse as it is, but also as balanced as it is in terms of gender is pretty cool. I mean, there are very few female Nintendo characters, just period, and that list suddenly grows by a significant chunk when you list every female fighter in ARMS. I was just looking at the entire roster. There are 15 characters who are fighters in ARMS, not counting Biff, who's basically the only non-playable character of any repute. There are 6.
Well, there's also the other DNA guys, and all the people
fair
in the
enough.
crowd.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Master Mummy's wife, Master Mummy's kid. Anyway, go on.
Yeah. But there are 6 male fighters, there are 6 female fighters, and there are 3 who are not human. There's Bite and Bark, there's Springtron, and there's Helix. Now, you can say that all 3 of those are more masculine type characters, but in terms of the balance, well, maybe not Helix. I don't know. Helix is kind of...
Yeah, I was gonna say
so,
Helix is
yeah. But I think that balance is important and different
He's
for
very phallic.
Nintendo. Yes. Especially with his one ability where he extends up and down.
Anyway.
But Charlie, you were
Sorry, I brought
talking
it up.
about that diversity.
he's got and he has glute based attacks too. That
Oh God.
we're just making it worse.
All right.
You know what I mean?
And they can blind the blobber that blinds you. Yeah. All right.
Yep. Yeah.
Charlie, talk about the diversity of the ARMS guys.
I mean, I don't know, like how many video games out there, let alone how many Nintendo games out there can you play as a black woman?
Yeah.
Like that's fucking cool as hell. Like I don't know.
F-Zero.
Just Wait, really?
Just saying.
Oh, I
Yeah,
yeah.
I'm
F-Zero
not familiar
X
I
with
or
haven't
that.
GX, Kate Allen.
Oh, I haven't played X or GX, just the original.
Ah.
Sadly, I gotta get on.
But
that
anyway,
list.
yeah. Stands. Codename Steam as well.
You've got your list in your back
Is,
pocket.
Damn, receipts. But no, I mean,
I
like,
actually...
but no, I feel like that is very much like talking about bringing Nintendo into a new era, right? Like, I feel like the Wii U, and to some extent
Yeah.
GameCube were very much an era of Nintendo, as much as the NES and Super Nintendo and the N64 and some of GameCube were.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like having such a globally diverse cast with humanoid characters with definitive cultural references
Mm-hmm.
is a very, very surprising big step forward for Nintendo.
Yeah.
In a lot of, I think, from like in like a really interesting way. Like you have flashes of it here and there, but I really do think that ARMS is the first game that like really celebrates that
Yeah.
in a lot of ways, and celebrates the like just
Yeah.
the beauty of like differences and how many like different kinds of people and different cultures there are in the world. And I think that's really beautiful. I think that's like genuinely one of the best things a work of art can do, when it is especially reveling in non-linear storytelling and more focusing on on more like general world building stuff.
Yeah.
But while we're on the topic of characters, who are your guys' mains in ARMS?
Sock, why don't you start?
Why don't I start? Okay. I know who my main isn't, and it's Kid Cobra.
Okay. Oh, interesting.
I've got most of the badges in the game. The one that I'm working on that I just cannot get is the 500 matches played with Kid
Oh my
Cobra.
God.
I guess I just don't like him as much as the rest. But he's great. I love his design and everything. But no, I think the character I play the most as these days is probably Lola Pop. Just because I love her movement options.
Yeah, her. I mean, being able to move and block in that game is massive, right?
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. Well, that's the thing. The quick dodge. She, you shield and then you, take a step. With all the other characters, it's like a step like slide.
Yeah.
But with her, it's like whee.
Yeah. I'll echo that and say, yeah, Lola Pop is one of my definite two mains of ARMS. The thing that makes Lola Pop feel so different is the sense of movement and momentum that she has. My favorite move that she has is jumping out of the shield, and you get this really high jump that she does, and then suddenly you can attack from above. That allows you to sort of slide and bounce and like sort of fly around the map in the way that you sort of can with like Mechanica and Ribbon Girl, but Lola Pop especially being able to shield.
Helix too, yeah.
Yeah, but I really love that sense of momentum that she has, and the other character that I use is Bite and Bark. I think that the way that you can jump off of Bark and then it goes on your head when you're using your super, and you have this extra playable character. It's kind of an ice climbers type situation. I think that that's just such a clever idea for a character in general. And while we're talking about characters,
Yeah, Bite and Bark were my mains in the vanilla version of the game.
oh, definitely.
What about you, Chuck? Charlie,
Whoa,
Taz,
we're
pardon
not
me.
supposed to say that here.
Oh,
I didn't know you felt that way about
I'm
him.
so sorry.
Springman is my day one and continues to be
Freudian slip.
continues to be my main. I love the comeback ability that he has. I was when that game first came out, I was very much into like Lucario was, I think, my main.
Yeah.
Well, I was like Lucario and Samus in Smash 4 at that point in time, and I really like the idea of like having like kind of like a comeback mechanic situation, plus the dash that Springman has with the ways that like the charging stuff works. It just feels like a really good flow where you get into this perfect rhythm where you kind of like you hold down the dash button, you dash, you hold down the dash button, you dash, and you like constantly have charged up punches. And I found a build for Springman that worked really well that I was really, really into when I played this game competitively very briefly, which was having Chilla on one arm and the fire boxing glove on the other, just like immobilize and then deal a ton of damage.
The roaster, the toaster.
Yeah, the toaster, exactly. And just like kind of getting into that rhythm combined with Springman's ability was just like kind of perfect for my for the way I like to play games.
Yeah. Well, I think that's maybe the best element about ARMS. And the reason, again, why this is basically the only fighting game that I like really, really personally cared about, is that there is a lot of customization, and the customization also means that there's a lot of unlockables. And so this game has a great sense of progression in the way that I don't find that many other fighting games have, in terms of you're constantly unlocking things, but also you can really change up your play style and choose through the unlockables and through the different arms that you get what you want to play like, and what kind of damage you want to do, and what kind of arcs you like, and that combining with the fact that the characters all play similarly, but they all have different enough attributes and passive abilities and movement options that it's not like it's entirely different moveset other fighting games. But I think they strike this really, really great balance of you can choose one of 15 characters, which is a solid sized roster, where I like the way that Ribbon Girl jumps. I like the way that Kid Cobra slides around. You can choose that baseline. But then on top of that, you have 3 sets of arms, or 2 sets of 3 arms that you can choose per round, and have 1 on each arm. And that means that you can adapt on the fly, and you can choose what fits your play style. And that sense of customization is something that you don't really feel in other fighting. I mean, like custom Mii moves in like Smash 4. But the customization and the unlockables, I think.
Custom Robo, rest in peace.
That is not a game I have any experience with, but I will trust your comment there. But yeah, what do you guys think about the customization in terms of all the arms, and also the fact that this means that the game has a lot of unlockables?
I mean, for me, looking at this game
Yeah.
from a competitive standpoint, I like competitive is maybe a bit of a strong word. I've competed in 2 tournaments for this game because, frankly, the competitive scene not really there.
Yeah.
But like the idea that there is a push and pull between, firstly, coming correct with like the right tools for any situation, right? Because you don't really know what your opponent's going to have when you play. I mean, I think I forget exactly how counterpicks work, because that is like a very complex thing to try and counterpick around with how customizing works in ARMS and with how central it is to the game. Excuse me. But no, I think it adds a very, very cool layer of metagaming, I guess, and mind gaming, and like kind of strategy into each round, where like, hey, I lost this round because I got counterpicked with this, and this loadout. Let me switch to something heavier to go through a multi-hit, or let me switch to something lighter because it's faster than the really big heavy arms, right? I think that is I think that is actually, Sock, this is something that you touched on in your ARMS 2 video, which everyone should go watch. But I really do think that the ability to switch arms on the fly in a match would give it the juice that I think a lot of people thought it didn't have when that game came out.
Yeah.
I agree. I think it is like a big deal, like for competitive players as well as like casual players, or just players who feel like they might be at a disadvantage, like you said, to be able to change their loadout between rounds. Like, round 1, I feel like I was robbed because my arm choice was bad. So round 2, this will be the one. And if it is the one, then the person who did it before will be like, okay, so that's how you want to play it, huh? It's a nice back and forth. Being able to switch on the fly would really drastically change it up, but that's what sequels are for, right?
Yeah.
ARMS 1 won't cease to exist if we get something that's a little bit dramatically different if you've got shakeups on the fly. And that could even, it'd be way OP if that was a character-specific ability.
There's
but
no
it
way.
could even be that,
There's no way.
I was actually thinking for a time that, a really good final update character for an ARMS expansion or an ARMS 2 would be a character who is the same species as Biff, but he's like a fighting master.
Oh, that would be sick.
If it, you know what I mean, like an ethereal. Because that's the thing. What is Biff? Is he an alien? Is he a god? Is he a fairy? We don't know.
Maybe they made
but
him in a
he's
lab.
definitely not of this world.
Yeah.
I don't feel like they made him in a lab because I mean it's possible, but I like that there are so many like ancient mosaics and art pieces and depictions of
true.
these triangle masks. Plus, we already know spirits exist in this world because of Misanga, and the spirit that Misango pairs with.
Yeah.
The spirit that Misango pairs with, by the way, has a mask the same shape as Biff's mask, and all of the stone statues and idols in Misanga are characters that look like Biff. There's that one piece of art where when you win as Misango, the victory thing you get is Biff visiting Misanga and all the tourists and all the children crowding around him and taking pictures and wanting autographs. Mm-hmm. It's like I feel like there's something otherworldly about Biff, and I feel like he's not the only one, because it'd be weird if he was like, I gift this planet this DNA thing. And that's the thing too, ARMS, the implications are also kind of horrifying. Because it's very the masks horror. It's the masks that let them control their arms and use it for recreation. Without it, they're unruly and impossible. So that's another sinister element of ARMS Labs, where it's like, we have this life-saving thing. It's like insulin. We have this life-saving thing,
that's interesting.
That you cannot function or operate, that more percentage of the ARMS world than the percentage of the people in the world who need insulin need the mask. And here's ARMS Labs like selling it to people.
Yeah, I think that could be something.
And there's also
in like, again, talking about potential story for an ARMS 2, I would love to see something about how because I feel like the implications of the lore that we've discussed and kind of like maybe not outright touched on is that this corporation is potentially like creating this and pulling the strings behind it to achieve some kind of, I guess, to use civilization terms, a cultural victory, right? They then are able to control socioeconomic things that are happening in the world, and I think that could be a really fun story to explore in a potential ARMS 2, where maybe you play as this I don't know, mysterious 16th, or wait, are there 16 characters?
They're 15. They're 15.
15. Okay, yeah. So this mysterious
there are 15.
16th newcomer, kind of like a I don't know, a Luke from Street Fighter or Sakura from Street Fighter. Yeah, or like an Octoling. Yeah, exactly. And kind of seeing things from a different perspective, but having a similar moveset to, one of these other beloved characters, or maybe even Dr. Coyle or something like that. Having that maybe like, and coming from Nintendo, it's a little bit, but like this very like deeply anti-capitalist bent and approach to to a story.
I implore you to play Pikmin 2, because what you were mentioning sounds like
Nintendo would never go they never go full.
Right.
But you're right. I think there are themes in this world, because my parallel always goes towards, this is kind of like the mutant gene in Marvel universe, like the X-Men. Like people they don't necessarily want this. It can change
the X-Men
in a bad way, or they can make it something that they work alongside and becomes a big part of their identity. And I love that in the world, that there is this. I like the fact that this ability and this element of these people's lives, the ARMS ability, does not always come from the same place, and they don't react in the same way to it. And I think it much in the way you learn about the different characters of the X-Men. I think that there is this variety that is so compelling. But the final topics that I kind of want to go over are the post-launch support and the party crashes, in terms of the updates, and then the party crashes as this sort of Splatfest analog for this game, the events. And then also the legacy of this game, where we kind of talked about about a potential sequel, but also the fact that Min Min was in Smash and things like that. But Sock, tell me about, you've talked a little bit about the post-launch support, but the updates in this game and the fact that they added the badges and also control customization, which was definitely needed.
The control customization was a godsend. Yeah. The only thing I've changed about the controls is shielding, but yeah.
What button do you use for shield?
I map shield to L.
Gotcha, yeah. That makes sense.
L. I don't like clicking in the thumbstick for anything. It's not intuitive, especially in a fighting game where you're doing things on the fly. But yeah, the updates have been great. The party crashes were a lot of fun. I'm missing like 2 party crash adjacent badges. I'm kicking myself over it. Like I think it's probably just a Dr. Coyle illustration and a Springman head or something. But the fact that they're missing and there is no clear sign on the horizon that I'll ever have the opportunity to legitimately unlock them does kind of itch a bit.
Yeah.
But it's what it is. It's the same thing with, like, you know, I'm deliberately not earning the play 500 matches with the motion controls or whatever badge, you know, so not the biggest deal in the world.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do kind of miss days of yore when you could unlock things in games. I do think it is better that things in games be on cartridge or on disc so that you don't run the risk of not having access to that content in the future. That said, I really, really, like I said earlier about the Dr. Coyle update, playing through that the first time, being one of my favorite gaming experiences ever. It's that thing where I love that it's in the moment. I love the spontaneity of that. So I want that to return. I think a good compromise is, you know, releasing an all content cart down the line. You know, a big fan
Game
like
of the
me
Year edition.
would get it, and people who are just like, yeah, Game of the Year edition, Nintendo Select edition, like, because people who are like, oh, I don't want a game with updates, they can get the full one when it's done. And put someone who's like me, who's like, I do like the updates, but I also want all the thing on one cart. I just get both.
And also, it's
You know,
official
win-win.
ARMS
That's
stuff
capitalism
you can buy.
working.
Or like a tournament edition even.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like that's one of the things
Yeah,
that the
yeah,
fighting
totally.
game like begs
Exactly.
for, right?
Yeah, so for me, the updates are interesting because the updates, I think, are what made this game... It makes the complaints that people have about the game at launch and why it didn't review particularly well, I think, harder to swallow in the modern day, because when you talk about the game now, you have to talk about it through the lens of, if you are playing it, you have plus 1/3 of the amount of characters. They really did expand the roster. You have the badges in terms of things to go after and challenges to do. You have the fact that the buttons can be remapped. You have the gallery, and that's a lot of stuff to unlock. I think that the game really did add a lot of content through that. And the reason why I think people critique this game, I mentioned this a little bit earlier, is that this is really like the Street Fighter 2 or Street Fighter 1 or Mortal Kombat 1 of Mortal Kombat or Street Fighter. This is the first entry in those series. The reason why Super Smash Bros. And Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat and Tekken and Soul Calibur, these games all have ridiculous rosters and tons of content, is because they've been building upon and iterating and adding things and retaining things over the course of many, many iterations and many sequels and many years. This having a 15 character roster and a 3 or 4 side modes and no story mode. These are things that should be ironed out in sequels. Just because this first game does not have those doesn't mean that this series doesn't have the space for those, that it can't mature into something like we see from other fighting games. And I think we saw that through the updates, that they were willing to listen to the community and add things that really expanded the replayability of the game. So I really, really did love the way that they built upon this. And I think after what was it? Like a year, I think, of updates, they all came out pretty quick, all things considered. The game is just, it feels a lot more complete. And so when people are like, oh, ARMS doesn't have a lot of content, I'm like, yeah, not compared to Mortal Kombat X, which released like the year before, but compared to the other games that are first in their series, there's actually quite a lot here, and especially with the updates, it feels like a very complete package.
Well, and that's the thing too, ARMS, in the conversation, it's competing a lot less with other core fighting games as much as it is other Nintendo properties.
Sure.
So what people are comparing it against, you know, famous detractors like Scott the Woz, or, you know, people with a lot of pull, they're going to be comparing it to Smash Brothers, or they're going to be comparing it to Splatoon.
Yeah.
And like you said, ARMS being the first of its kind is at an inherent disadvantage because they're doing it for the first time. So even just those first 10 characters, or 9 characters technically, the game launched with, I felt, or was it 10 before Max Brass? Either way. Before that, I felt it was perfectly, like, you judge the game based on what it has, not what it doesn't have. The people who say the roster was too little, they don't know who else they want. They don't know what other kind of character they want. They just know number small, ergo bad.
Yeah.
I feel like there was a lot of really undue criticism toward ARMS. And I get it. Some of it I get. Some of it, like the Smash Bros. Player saying, unlocking trophies, compel me to try the single player stuff, but ARMS didn't have that. So yeah, having badges and gallery artwork at launch would have helped. But I kind of think not by that much, because, if you're not enjoying the world, then, why would you want to unlock that stuff in the first place? And so, but I don't think people weren't enjoying the world. So I think something as little as the characters' arcade modes opening with illustrations as well as closing probably would have done a lot more for the game in those particular detractors' minds. But who can say?
So, like, I do want to, like, maybe push back a little bit about ARMS being, like, kind of panned. I mean, it's sitting at a 78 on OpenCritic and a 77 on Metacritic. That's really good for a first entry in a game like this.
Yeah.
Like, I think that
and almost 3 million
with,
sales too.
Yeah, 3 million sales combined with the fact that it's sitting at a pretty solid Metacritic rating for what it is. I don't understand why we don't know about a sequel yet. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like it's just crying out for its Melee, it's Tekken 3, it's Street Fighter 2.
Yeah.
And you name it. You know what I mean? Like, Mario Kart wasn't the Mario Kart a lot of people love until Mario Kart 64.
Fingers crossed that it's coming in the next console.
Yeah. And that's something in terms of the game's legacy that I think this game has an unfortunately tainted legacy. I didn't mean to say this was a panned game. I don't know if I accidentally said that or not. But it definitely isn't a cultural hit. It's definitely not a fan favorite. It is a niche game, and especially for as few new IP as Nintendo truly puts their world building and character artwork and stuff behind. ARMS is in that legacy of Pikmin and Splatoon and ARMS. But I think that what people don't look at it in the right way, in my opinion, because when you think about 3 million sales, and you compare that to most of the other things that launched first year of Switch, okay, you're talking about Breath of the Wild and Super Mario Odyssey and Splatoon 2 and Mario Kart Deluxe, some of the biggest selling games that Nintendo's ever made. 3 million is very small in comparison to those. That's undeniable. But when you compare to the other, even more culturally relevant, but not more niche franchises than people give them credit for, ARMS has sold more than most Kirby games. ARMS has sold more than most Metroid games. ARMS has sold more than basically every Pikmin game. ARMS did not sell poorly. 3 million sales is a lot of copies, and it is absolutely commensurate to the majority of other smaller Nintendo IP. The Switch has expanded.
I would agree. I also want to quickly put an addendum that it's 2.7 million. I said almost 3 million earlier.
Gotcha.
But yeah. It's not quite 3 million even.
Yeah, but the point still stands.
Just for the record, because I know people will comment.
Of course, yes. But the point still stands that most people think of things like Kirby and Metroid as, those are like the long-standing, awesome Nintendo IP. They have a ton of entries. They're always experimenting with them, and so they must have sold whatever amount of copies a person like that thinks a copy of that needs to sell, and they don't. The Kirby games until Forgotten Land and Metroid games until Dread, they sell like 1.5 to 2.5 million copies, and that's fine. Fire Emblem games also sell before Awakening sell commensurate to that, and so the success of ARMS,
Zelda games too. Ocarina of Time sold like 4 million.
Yeah. And so I think it is primed for a sequel. I think it sold enough for Nintendo to think it's a success. We can see them putting some effort into making sure that it has a retained legacy with the inclusion of Min Min in the second Fighter's Pass of Smash Ultimate. So it's not like they have completely forgotten about it. Oh,
And Springman
Mhm.
as an assist trophy.
true. Yeah.
And Springman as an assist trophy and all the stickers. I mean, spirits.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that there is the space for this. And another thing that gets me hopeful for the potential of a sequel is that EPD9, who makes Mario Kart and made ARMS, they have been close to entirely quiet for the entire Switch generation in terms of major projects. They have they did the Booster Course Pass, obviously. They assisted on Mario Kart Home Tour, and they made Mario Kart Tour. But they have not released a major project. And so it is in 7 years at this point. So it is definitely possible that an ARMS sequel and, of course, a Mario Kart sequel, which is obviously the thing that would get precedent or get prominence. Like they would certainly
Priority.
That's the word I was
Yeah.
looking for. Thank you. An ARMS sequel is definitely possible. I'm not getting my hopes too high up, but within the next 2 or 3 years, I think it's possible that we get an ARMS sequel on the next Nintendo system. You guys agree?
Yeah, sorry, I got distracted. I got a work thing. Yes, I absolutely do agree.
Sock, what do you think?
I also, it's this is the kind of stuff that keeps me up at night. I've made more videos about this than I have about ARMS itself. The fact that EPD9 have been missing, like, they definitely have projects in development, but none have released since ARMS. Some key staff members helped out with the booster pack and with Mario Kart Tour, but that's not the whole department. That's not the whole division. That's just some, that's some key people, producers, artists, people like that. So it stands to reason that I'll bet since ARMS finished updates, I'll bet they've been working definitely on Mario Kart 9. Like that is all but guaranteed
of course.
to be a launch year release for the next console. As for literally anything else, there was a time where I was very confident, like in 2018, I was very confident that we'd get an ARMS 2 in a couple years on the Switch, because
Like Splatoon.
when we data mined the game, yeah, like Splatoon. Because when we data mined the game, when people data mined the game early on, like before any of the characters after Max Brass even released, we found, and there have been people in the ARMS community since who have, like, they're making mods and hacks and, like, really exploring this. There were concepts left on the table. There were stages left on the table. There were code names for future fighters that never ended up happening. Because, like, all of the code names match up pretty seamlessly to the characters in the game. Like, Robot is Springtron, Coil is Dr. Coil, Sweet is Lola Pop, stuff like that. But there were other code names that just didn't end up matching to anything, like Plant and Sumo and
I
Surprise.
remember that. Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, and it's that makes me think, okay, there's definitely more ARMS content, like, in the nebulous.
Yeah.
like the ARMS team definitely have more ideas. So when they announced that they were ending updates in December of 2017, right after Dr. Coil, I thought, that's way too early. We're just getting started. Yeah. So I thought maybe the game isn't doing as well as they would have liked. Maybe they feel like they are limited by what this game is, and they're going to, save face, take all of this stuff they were going to put in this game, and save it for a timely sequel. That obviously did not end up happening. And at this point, because the next console is, like, on the horizon, my hope is that we also see an ARMS sequel in the launch year. And if not, they might have made it and they might be saving it. Nintendo does that. We know for a fact they do that now. But yeah, it's just, I really hope that they have come back to ARMS, that they've worked on an ARMS, that they have an ARMS, and that they'll let us have it. I don't know, but I can hope.
So that does make me wonder, Tucker, as kind of the expert on I would imagine one of the world's foremost experts on Nintendo studios and internal teams that doesn't work for Nintendo. I'm curious what you think is like this team has bandwidth for, because I do think that obviously a game as successful as Mario Kart is going to take absolute priority over anything else that this team would be making. But do you think that they have the bandwidth to have developed both a full scale, impressive next gen in quotes Mario Kart game, and also have made a sequel to ARMS that will be like releasable within the next year and a half.
I think yes, and I think
Really?
for,
Okay.
for a very specific reason.
I mean, it's been 7 years.
The time,
Sure.
the time is the main thing of like what have they been doing for this long? They were working
Mm-hmm.
on something in 2018. We don't know what it was. They were working on something in late 2017. They have to have been doing
Really?
games. No, yeah, that's just how game development studios work. You don't.
Oh, okay, yeah,
like,
I was-
let everyone go for
Sure.
8 months.
I thought there was like some kind of report
no.
or some kind
Just
of
like
confirmation. Okay.
knowing how game development works.
Sure. Right.
I also did for a second there.
People go to work every day. The people at the
Right.
studio were working on something in late 2017, 2018,
Sure.
2019, 2020. What were they doing for all this time? So that's the main thing of just how long it's been. Absolutely, it is very possible to develop multiple games in that time frame. Also, Nintendo's EPD teams are pretty sizable. This is not a small team that was able to handle both the production of this game and the DLC for this game and Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, and then just a few years earlier Mario Kart 8 and all of its DLC. But also when you look at the production timeline of what this team was making before, it was only Mario Kart for the longest time. They also did Nintendogs, obviously a very, very long time ago.
Nintendogs, yeah.
So
And Luigi's Mansion once upon a time. as well.
very long
Oh.
time ago, yes. But
Yep.
they were doing those games every other year, basically. I mean, when you think about the release cadence of Mario Kart games, they were every console had one, and so I'm looking at here, 2008 Mario Kart Wii, 3 years later Nintendogs plus Cats and Mario Kart 7. 3 years after that, Mario Kart 8. 3 years after that, ARMS and Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, and so they were on a 3-year consistent time scale, and now they haven't been. So I think in terms of the way that they were releasing the release cadence prior to the Switch generation, and also just the size of these teams and the fact that they can easily be developing multiple things at once, you might have said the exact same thing about, can they be developing 2 major projects at once for EPD 10? But then we saw the release of Super Mario Bros. Wonder and Pikmin 4 last year, within 1 year of each other. So I think
And part of that too is because Pikmin 4 was also
Developed by Aiding.
Developed by
Yeah,
Aiding,
yeah.
yeah.
And also it's possible that they have people working, like Velen Studios worked on Mario Kart Home Circuit. That's it. Mario Kart Home Circuit. Maybe they're also helping out with the next Mario Kart game. There is ways that that outsourcing and dev timelines and producers, people are working on these games, and so they absolutely have multiple things either done or in production right now. And so it's very, very possible that over the course of the next 2 years,
There's also a very, very... I also want to interject this real quick. There's also a very funny possibility that they don't have a Mario Kart ready yet. Because when you brought up EPD 10, I remembered how they had absolutely no deadline when it came to Wonder. Which is part of the reason why we didn't see new side-scrolling Marios for so long, is because the team Nintendo said, take all the time you need, literally all the time you need to come up with something really fresh.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's not out of the question that they might be saying the same thing about Mario
yeah, it's
Kart.
interesting.
Because
Especially because they've been able to hold Deluxe for so long.
Yeah.
and I mean, again, not to mention once again, like people and resources from that team were working on other like Mario Kart adjacent spin-off DLC,
yeah.
etc. things. But I also do think that is like not to get super off topic with a Mario Kart discussion, but I think Mario Kart is a series that's begging for its Mario Odyssey, Breath of the Wild,
Yeah.
Metroid Prime moment
Yeah.
right now. And, having taken presumably 6-7 years since ARMS, not including, DLC and other, side projects relating to Mario Kart, I'm very curious to see what that even looks like, because I do think like next year with A, the 40th anniversary of Mario, and B, the Switch 2 coming out, there is no universe in which Nintendo does not have a Mario Kart ready by, I'm going to say, holiday season.
Yeah. And also that would make sense
In my
to have
opinion.
that major game out. The next Mario movie is releasing in April of 2026. And so you definitely you definitely want
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Mario games on the shelves, and Mario Kart 9, 10, whatever you call it, would be the perfect game for that. But yeah, Do we have anything else to talk about ARMS?
We do have some friend-coded things to talk about.
Absolutely, we do.
Not a ton of responses because, let's be honest, people aren't as hype about ARMS as they should be. You know what I mean? They don't give it its due. But pulling in the first one, friend of the show, Jake Steinberg, at Jake Knows It on Twitter, I asked kind of just like general thoughts about the game, the Joy-Cons, the mains, whatever. Jake Steinberg says Max Brass in all caps. And that it is an incredible game, harder to pick up and play competitively than he remembered, and that the movement is really its own beast that you got to practice. And yeah, I mean, we talked about it a little bit, but that movement is so interesting and so deceptively deep, I would say.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, you got it, Jake.
We also have David P. in my Discord server who says, everyone is pretty keen on ARMS, but many are pretty negligent towards its oft-forgotten sequel, Legs. Don't skip Legs Day, people. All right. You always got to have a joker.
Heard that joke a million times before.
There's always a joker in there. Also have...
no joke, though?
Yeah.
What's going on?
No, continue.
I was just going to say briefly, people have made that gosh darn joke so often, I started thinking to myself, realistically, can you do legs? And then I thought about, like, well, what if it's not a fighting game? What if it's a racing game?
Oh.
It's like an on-foot racing game where instead of different arms, you have different, like, bottom halves. Yeah. Like different, like they call them legs. But it's like, this one's roller skates, and this one's tractor tires, and this one's rockets, you know?
Yours seems to God's
like it's
ear.
possible.
My God, that is brilliant.
Hey, because you know who's good at making racing games? EPD9.
Exactly.
Yeah, EPD9, exactly. It kind of tracks.
Yeah, that's
Goddamn.
very interesting. My mind immediately when you said racing game went to their legs stretch, and so you're really high above the track, and the track is really small beneath.
That'd
you.
actually be kind of funny if instead of drifting, you can try to like stretch over your opponents.
Yeah.
But they can block you, or they can intentionally stay short and just like weave around. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's something.
Come on, Nintendo.
What if it was like a
Game
Ring Fit
Jam it.
Adventure sequel?
What?
Yeah.
What are you
Yeah.
talking about?
Why not?
You use your legs.
Legs, like you're working out your legs.
Yeah.
You do work
Leg
on your
day.
legs.
Legs day.
Yeah.
There's have you not played Ring Fit Adventure? There's
I have, but I'm saying like, you know, they maybe they have some kind of like new wacky peripheral that's like focused on legs. Like maybe it's like some kind of like leg. They got the Rock Lee leg weights for legs, or something like that.
Yeah.
Bringing in another friend-coded response from Scruffy the Zet Scrufftail on Twitter. They said, I've not played ARMS in a good minute, but I did really enjoy playing Lola Pop after she released. Her mobility was always really entertaining. I think ARMS has a lot of potential, just ironically didn't have the legs to stand on for a long period.
Yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately. I
People always talk about that potential. It's true, but that's the thing though, is that the potential is literally limitless.
mm-hmm.
I don't think it's that ARMS 1 didn't meet its potential, because I feel like it did and it exceeded it. You know, that's the thing that I feel like too many people, you know, people who aren't necessarily fans of ARMS, people who have that response,
Yeah.
who say, I liked it all right, but not enough. Or say, I feel like it missed the mark. It didn't meet its potential. I feel like it did, but I do agree that there is definitely there's more to explore.
Yeah.
There's so much more to
I think
explore.
it was what it needed to be, but it wasn't as explored. Yeah, like you said, it was exactly what it needed to be, and it didn't necessarily go beyond that, I think. Which I think is kind of what Scruffy's getting at. Another one, Josiah Byler, Zaya13 on Twitter. I got the game with the yellow Joy-Cons at launch and really enjoyed it. I usually played with Helix and Min Min. Did y'all get the yellow Joy-Con?
No. I'm a yellow Joy-Con-less guy. I'm so sorry.
I actually, my Switch is the Splatoon 2 bundle.
Oh, hell yeah.
Oh,
That's cool.
Okay.
So my first Joy-Cons were green and pink.
Yeah.
Nice. I was so excited for this game. So excited. I'm talking like playing the Global Test Punch.
Yeah.
I'm talking listening to the theme song like during like my computer class in high school. I'm talking buying these yellow Joy-Cons for $80 immediately and freaking the hell out when when they arrived, because I was so damn excited for this game. I cannot tell you how excited I was for this game. And those yellow Joy-Cons, I had those on my Switch for so damn long.
Mm-hmm.
I think they were my main Joy-Cons for a good while, honestly, and I still put them on. I'm mostly neon red these days, but those yellow Joy-Cons.
Yeah.
So, have you all seen them in person? Because they do look better in person.
I must have. But what's interesting when you think about it is that was the first other color Joy-Con. I mean, we actually there wasn't really confirmation that we would get a bunch of different colors of Joy-Con. We had the gray, we had the neon red on one side, and we had the neon blue on the other side. But ARMS, as one of the first major releases since the system came out, the system launched, was the first one to have different colored Joy-Con, and so I think that's another element of Nintendo really did try their best to push this, of trying to pull people in with basically what amounts to, in the Switch's life cycle, a like, what's the word I'm looking for? Like a special edition system, kind of. Especially early on, before we had actual special edition systems. Like, this is something new on shelves. You can make your Switch look a different color, so it's different from everyone else. And hey, ARMS is there as well. They try.
I think it's also something that isn't a Pro Controller, right? Because this game, they were so gung-ho about the motion control aspect of that. And the Joy-Cons were like
grip,
we're very like, I feel like this is very, very much the something that might have evolved from like maybe a tech demo or something, or like the origins of ARMS might have evolved from like a tech demo with like trying to create something around the controller. Is that true?
The origin of ARMS, it started on the Wii U. It was the 2D. It was like I talked about before, the idea of taking a 2D fighting game and making it 3D. Huh. But that was at the same time as there was also you're right about the tech demo thing, but that wasn't also ARMS. They just sort of became one another.
Sure.
There were other demos they worked on that used the thumbs up grip that didn't end up going anywhere. Like they made like a bowling game and some other games like that. It was like there was a whole, I think there's a video about it on Nintendo of America's channel.
I'll have to find
where they interviewed Yabuki on it. Yeah. But yeah, that's, and weird thing too about those yellow Joy-Cons, in a weird way, I feel like the color yellow also hasn't helped ARMS like marketing, because it feels like Nintendo is so, like, the menus and the startup screen, it's all yellow. Yeah. It's just bright yellow and nothing else. I feel like that home screen might have also subconsciously turned a lot of people off to it, because they're like, well, this is a menu, this is boring. And the Joy-Cons are yellow, and the graphic novel's preview comic, the cover was just yellow with illustrated outlines of the characters. I don't know why Nintendo was so adamant about advertising ARMS with the color yellow, but
because it rules. You know what I mean? You know what I mean?
Look at that.
Yeah. Nice.
We also have to be honest. I think it's another hard sell is ARMS is not the greatest name for a video game. I'm going to be completely real.
Yes.
It's very, very bland. It does not... If you know...
It's grown on me. I like it a lot now, but yeah.
Because I actually remember this game was leaked on Reddit or 4chan a couple of hours or maybe a day before this January Switch presentation. And
really?
People thought the leak was fake because there was a game just called ARMS.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
It's like, why the hell would they do that?
I don't know about that.
yeah, I think because I remember I watched if you watch the Easy Allies reaction to the January 2017 presentation, they know about ARMS. Like, oh, that's from the leak. That and Super Mario Odyssey and things were on there. But yeah, this game is very interesting. Obviously, we're all very passionate about it. It has so much potential, and some of the elements of it feel like they put their all into getting information out there and putting out Joy-Con and making there's a new IP and making it coming from the Mario Kart team, one of the most respected developers of in-house Nintendo teams ever. But then there's the thing about the color, and the name isn't great, and then people complained about the lack of content, whether that's fair or not, and so it ultimately in reality is a mixed bag. And no matter how much I love this game, this was not a smash hit. It does make it more interesting to talk about, but there is so much in there in Nintendo's creativity, in the fact that the fighting game genre is actually bigger as of the last like year and a half than it has been in the last 15 years, with major releases in Tekken and Mortal Kombat and Street Fighter, and obviously Smash Ultimate is the highest selling fighting game of all time. And so I think that honestly ARMS might have been more successful if it released 3 years later or something like that. Build the Switch install base a little bit more.
I honestly don't know about that.
Okay, yeah.
I'm sorry, I hate to interrupt you, but I feel like part of its success is being a launch year title.
That's probably, that's definitely true.
As much as it pains me to say, I feel like a big contributor to its success was the fact that there was little else to play.
Yeah.
That said, we're 7 years into the Switch's life cycle, and first-party Nintendo games still tend to break the million mark. So, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you're right. Maybe ARMS would have done better if the rest of the fighting game. But then again, I don't know, because then, if the rest of the fighting game scene is doing better now, maybe ARMS would have done worse because the FGC wouldn't be curious about it.
I think the crossover between the FGC and ARMS player base is very, very small. Like really, really small. But I do think that it could have been more successful later on, if only just because there was more attention, more eyes, and more hype on the Switch. Yeah. Later on. I mean, you look at what happens now. Like, I wasn't really on Twitter that much back during this era, but you look at like what happens now when a Direct gets announced. I mean, can you imagine what it would be like if a new Nintendo IP opened up last week's Nintendo Direct, and it was something like ARMS, where it has this energetic art style, this music, this all this stuff, and we're like, what is this? And it would be trending on Twitter for days. And I don't think that was the case when it was initially revealed.
No, definitely not, because it was also alongside the reveals of Splatoon 2 and Super Mario Odyssey and Xenoblade Chronicles 2 and Shin Megami Tensei 5. And they went ham that day.
Yeah.
They did.
But hopefully we will be able to see the reality of an ARMS game being released into the current Nintendo climate, the current fighting game climate. I think that those are both things that they might not, but could potentially help a sequel be received better and be more popular. And also, I do think that they can learn from their mistakes. I mean, that's usually what happens with this kind of teams. Even Mario Kart. I don't think the first Mario Kart game is very good. I think it's fine for what it is, but you learn from that and you get to Mario Kart 64 and you're like, hey, now there's a game. And that's usually what happens with...
Well, yeah, but it was also made in a different time.
Of
There's
course.
that to consider, too.
Yeah. Sock, any closing thoughts on ARMS? This is the Nintendo Select official ARMS podcast, and you have been the guest. What do you have to say?
Let me think. So like, in conclusion, I think, I think I made my case for ARMS pretty succinctly there at the beginning, and with everything we've said about it, it's... Yeah, I love that game. And that's the thing, too. I love this game. I think it is the number one game. ARMS 2, a sequel to ARMS, is the number one game I want to see from Nintendo. More so than a AAA F-Zero, because I feel a lot better about the future of the franchise now that we've got 99. Even more so than something like Custom Robo, just like a Hail Mary, there's no way they'd bring this back thing that appeals to me, because ARMS does a lot for me that Custom Robo does for me, plus some. So yeah, it's just ARMS is probably my favorite Nintendo IP.
Wow, cool.
Not gonna lie, and thanks for giving me the opportunity to come and discuss it a bit.
Well, thanks for teaching us both so much about ARMS, its world, and its history. At least I don't know how much, Tucker, you learned, but I feel like I played a lot of this game, but I didn't know some of the things that we talked about, especially in regards to its conception as a game. So yeah, it was very educational. So thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thank you. Yeah, my pleasure.
And thank you everyone for listening to Nintendo Select, a Nintendo Switch retrospective and nostalgia podcast. Of course, you can follow me and Charlie on Twitter. Our Twitters are linked in the description. I will also link Sock's Twitter and also Sock's channel down there as well. And make sure to go watch if you liked this and you liked hearing people talk about ARMS. Sokka's a bunch of ARMS videos. We talked about that quite a few times today. But as
Thank
maybe
you.
the premier ARMS content creator into the modern day, you'll have plenty of stuff to go search up there. That's it.
SNG will contest that.
And
Super N guy on Twitter.
I'm not familiar with
looking-
them.
looking beyond just the
Shout
scope,
out to SNG.
hell yeah, I'll have to check them out. But looking beyond even just the scope of ARMS, Sock, do you have any videos coming up that you are really excited about that you'd like to promote in particular?
So I've been gone for a while, just busy with real life stuff.
Yeah.
But I recently came back. With a video talking about 10 things that I want to see come to the Switch before we move on to the next console. I also live reacted to the last Direct, and I put the highlights up on my YouTube. That's great. In terms of upcoming videos, I've got plenty of ideas, but I'm completely overwhelmed by what order to do them in or get them finished at. I'll just put it this way. If you're a fan of niche games and like somebody hyper like in tune to Nintendo's franchises, especially the ones that they don't use a lot, that's kind of my bread and butter.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
My favorite videos that you do are the ones about the status of IPs, like how dead is it or not. You've got like this whole meter. I love those videos, and having someone that focuses in on Nintendo's niche IP is obviously very important, and it's more important now than ever because Nintendo has been willing over the course of the last few years to dip back into that well and bring back Advanced Wars and Trace Memory and F-Zero and things like that. And there's got to be someone out there talking about these games so they know that people want them, and that so when the new games come out, people can go learn about those series from the videos that have been put up. So you're definitely serving an important YouTube ecological niche.
Thanks, Tucker.
Any final closing thoughts, Charlie?
No, none from my end. I guess please go read all of my various Summer Game Fest coverage for IGN and NME and Epic Game Store blog. I just have a lot of articles that came out like last week since we've last recorded an episode of this show, just because of all the Summer Game Fest craziness. So please go check some of that stuff out.
Yep. And on my end, we've got a couple of actual videos coming out. We were so busy with Summer Game Fest stuff and covering State of Play, and then Summer Game Fest, and then the Xbox Showcase, and then Nintendo Direct. But we're recording a new video right after this about the state of exclusivity, of console exclusivity in the modern era, as it's been shifting and changing. And by the time that this goes up on Friday, the video might be next week, but you'll see it pretty soon regardless. So that's it. Nintendo Select episode Jesus, I actually don't know, 6, I think 6 is in the bank. Thank you very much for joining us, Sock.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
Set sail when you're ready, Charles.
Beautiful.
Does everyone call you Charles?
Like when I'm in trouble, my parents do or did.
Is that like your
I guess
legal name on like a document?
that is my government name.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's like what people call me.
Anyone ever call you Chaz?
Chaz?
Or Chuck?
Chaz, yes. Chuck, sometimes. Chaz was my like tag when I played a lot of Smash competitively and stuff like that.
That's a cool tag. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, Chaz is definitely up there. Charles or Chuck, people do, but they shouldn't.
Mostly he's a
It's
joke.
It's not appreciated. Yeah.
In the Charlie community, we don't like Chuck.
In the Charlie community, no.
Duly noted.
I had no idea.
It's a social faux pas in the Charlie community.